Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Rookies podcast. I am your host, Olivia Sala, and with me is, of course, my co-host, Alize Temel. And on today's episode, we will be discussing the impact of COVID-19 on one of the more niche sports in the industry, Ultimate Frisbee. To help provide a bit more insight into the sport is the owner and managing partner of the Toronto Rush Ultimate Disc Team, Jim Lloyd, and Senior Account Executive for Cosmos Sports and Entertainment, Jordan Fung. So welcome, Jim and Jordan, to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here. Let's get right into today's topic, starting with a little bit more information on maybe your backgrounds and how you got involved with Ultimate Frisbee and the Toronto Rush. Jim, I'll start with you.
Sure. Well, first of all, Alize and Olivia, thanks for having me. It's nice to be here. I got involved with Professional Ultimate and the American Ultimate Disc League in 2012 when they announced that they were going to try to bring a team to Toronto. So we're in a franchise of 22 teams across most of the major markets in North America. And we thought it was really kind of a cool opportunity to get involved in what we thought would be a sport that had lots of potential. So we bought into that, and we have been working away at it for 7, 8 seasons now. And every year it gets a little different, and it gets a little closer to being a mainstream sport, which is our vision for this, is to take Ultimate from being a niche sport to a mainstream sport. And that's kind of how I got there. And my responsibility, I'm in charge of sales and operations on behalf of the ownership group for the team, and also participate on sort of our team management council for the American Ultimate Disc League.
And then to jump in myself, firstly, thank you guys for having me again. But yeah, I'm the senior account executive on the Toronto Rush profile. It's a great property to be working with. I started off my career in sports with the Toronto Rush. Coming into it, I had no clue of the AUDL. And since then, I've just grown to love the sport. It's fast paced. It's almost kind of like the underdog. And as I've been here, I've seen so many, celebrities invest in it. You see stuff like Bill Nye, some professional football players. You're seeing some of the games being played at halftime during NFL games. So I just love to be a part of something that's growing, and it's allowing me to grow as well in my career in sports. So I'm just totally happy to be here and look after the ticket sales and doing some community relations. So making sure our fans know what's going on, encouraging them to come out to games. It's definitely been tough, and I know we'll get into that. But yeah, we've just been riding with the waves, and so far so good. So very optimistic about our 2021 season, and hopefully we can kick off something great.
All right, great. So going back to last year when the pandemic started, what was the reaction of the team to canceling the 2020 season?
Obviously very disappointed. We had a lot of, obviously the pandemic was a very difficult thing for everybody to try to get their heads around, and it was very scary and very unpredictable. So we went through, we normally plan for our season to run April until August. So we were very, very engaged in this whole discussion around whether or not we could actually pull a season off. And initially we started with a delay. We said we were going to start later than we normally would and hope that things would improve. And obviously they didn't. So we got to a situation where we had to make a final decision. And like many other sports leagues or many other organizations, we said, listen, we can't do this safely. So we're going to have to cancel it and live to fight another day. So we made the decision. It was very disappointing, but when we look back at it, we think it was the right thing to do.
Yeah, I agree. And just to add on, I think Jim came to me with every single possible, plan to play. We tried everything, even changing it to just a Canadian series, which they have done now. We looked at every possible way we could make this work, and unfortunately, it was just better and safer for our fans to cancel the season and continue on with some social content that we could keep them engaged, but looking forward to our 2021 season. So disappointing, but overall, I think probably the best option.
Yep, I agree with that. It's best to keep the staff and the athletes safe as well as the audience. How about from a league perspective? Has COVID affected operations of the league as a whole? And if so, could you talk about that, Jim and Jordan? What measurements have been put in place for the upcoming season in July?
So when we canceled the season last year, we knew that we had to sit back and take a real look at where things were at, not only dealing with the COVID situation, but where our league was at from an evolution and overall growth perspective. So one of the things that we did is immediately we knew that if we're going to get back to playing, we would have to be able to deal with the pandemic and with COVID. So there was the creation of the COVID task force within the league. So what we did is we sought out medical expertise outside of just our ownership group and just our investors. And we went out and we recruited epidemiologists and doctors who were both, we had some doctors associated with our league, but we went outside of the league and we created a task force. And we knew that to return to play safely, we would have to come up with protocol, with a return to play protocol. So I would imagine that probably 6 solid months of work went into reviewing everything that was happening with COVID and understanding that getting our players back on the field was going to take some significant effort and it was going to take some significant buy-in. So we came up with what are called the return to train protocols. We've also created what's called the Athlete Care Network. Now, the Athlete Care Network basically is the establishment of a structured approach from every one of our member teams in the league. We have 22 teams. Every team now has to have a licensed physician. We also have to have certified athletic trainers, which we've had, but reporting to our team physician, and also a health and safety manager at the ground level on the management side of the team. So there are a number of checklists, questionnaires, testing, vaccination tracking that is going to take place in order to get our players back on the field for our start, which is a Canadian series. And we think that we've done a very, very good job for a league our size with the resources that we have to come up with a plan that's safe for everyone involved and that the players will buy into and that they will feel comfortable about coming back to play. So we've got a process, we've got a protocol in place. We've released that documentation on social media just last week. So it's all up there in terms of how we're going to approach our return to play this year.
And from a format standpoint, the league is also, like Jim kind of touched upon, the Canadian series. So originally we'd be playing against, in our division, we'd be going down to New York and Boston and playing against those teams. But it's definitely changed it. And since due to the uncertainty of the border, we'll be just playing our games here against Ottawa and Montreal. And then there'll be a championship between those 3 teams up here. And then those 2 teams, New York and Boston, are going to be playing just in the United States. So just so that way we didn't have to go back to a contingency plan in any way. This way we know for a fact that we can get these players between Montreal and Ottawa without having anyone stuck at the border, anyone stuck in the States or stuck in Canada. So.
All right, so this one's more of a general question. What are the challenges and opportunities of being an ultimate Frisbee team in Canada? Jim, if you want to step in.
Sure. Well, I guess there's a number of challenges with every professional sports organization. I think probably what we face as a Canadian franchise in an American league are a couple things. The geography is a challenge, specifically around COVID. Just the border causes a significant challenge. It really inhibits our ability to plan. I would also look at things like just exchange on the dollar. It causes a significant increase in budgets. And it's something that we need to be cautious of. The proximity of our 3 Canadian teams is great. We're close to each other. It's easy to travel to and from, but our vision is to have an expanded Canadian league and have teams all across Canada playing against the best teams in Canada. But that's a very difficult challenge, and you see it from the Canadian soccer leagues. Some of the challenges in moving across a very big country. It's expensive and it's very difficult to do. So I would say that, and big picture, attracting some of the sponsorship dollars that are available in the U.S. versus Canada. Budgets are very different in the U.S. than they are in Canada. decision making is very different. So that's a challenge. You know, sometimes we can find opportunities that are significant opportunities in the US, but it's a different budget and a different decision making chain for Canada. So we've got to be very aggressive and proactive for our marketing efforts and our sponsorship marketing efforts in Canada. I think those are some of the challenges that I would identify. There's probably lots more.
I would say, from an opportunity standpoint, I think the fact that it's an up and coming league, it is great. It allows you to grow, and the teams, when we reach out to brands, we can kind of say like, hey, look, we are quickly growing. We are going to be the next best thing. And being very optimistic about that helps us in a lot of these proposals, I would say. So the opportunity is the fact that we're here from the start, or from the early stages, and we can kind of see this thing grow out to being something much larger once they get into a cross nation.
Awesome. And so kind of going off of that, ultimate Frisbee is kind of considered to be more of a niche sport. And I know, Jim, you were saying you're trying to make it more of a mainstream sport. So how have you guys kind of gone about breaking into such a saturated market, especially in the city of Toronto, where there are so many major league teams within it?
Yeah, I guess the fact that there are so many, of the big sports professional franchise in Toronto can be a blessing, but it can also be a real inhibitor in terms of just market share and wallet share and time share of getting a fan to actually want to watch your sport. So I think what we've done and what we need to continue to do is focus on creating really cool content that will become something that is interesting and compelling to watch. I think our sport leads to great opportunities for content. Some of the highlights that we put out are really cool. And, we've been on Sports Center, ESPN many times with some of those plays of the day. And we need to continue to do that. And I think also we need to act like a professional sports entity. We're a small pro sports league that has their players that have other jobs as well as playing sports. But we need to act like we're a legitimate professional sports league for people to take us seriously. So I think, we want to act like the big boys. We want to continue to grow at a rate that, aligns with budgets that we have set for this kind of thing. But we need to just get more people watching it. And I think small pieces of really cool, compelling video content draws in our demographic, and our demographic is young people. It's 18 to 35. It's the Instagram generation, and it's the ones that like to follow cool things. So that's really where our investments are put, is into content creation and into content distribution and media and social media.
Yeah, I'd agree with Jim. From time to time, I've seen posts on the AUDL Twitter that get reshared on Bleacher Report or House of Highlights, and these are huge platforms that post the top plays of the week and whatnot. So whenever we get a chance to kind of get that exposure on those platforms, it's always great for the league and the growth of the league.
Yep, certainly creating good content, and as you said, the highlights that you put out, these are very important for you to get your exposure and for the development of the sport, which is kind of was my next question. What role Toronto Rush is playing in the development of the sport? You kind of touched upon that, but is there anything you'd like to add, Jim?
Well, one thing that we have been very consistent and we've done since day one, back when we started the franchise, started playing in 2013, is we made a real effort to get out to schools and provide clinics on playing Ultimate or introducing kids to Ultimate. And we do it every year. We do a ton of clinics where players will go either take over phys ed classes or go do after school clinics. We bring a lot of school age children to games, to watch games and to participate in these games, playing halftime on the field. It's a big experience for a lot of these school kids. And also we make our players very accessible at these games. They can come down and talk to the players after. They can go and throw the Frisbee on the field with them after. So I think what we're trying to do is trying to reach out to very young fans. We're trying to win over experienced older sports fans with our content. And we're trying to position this as a very different sporting experience and a very different athlete, one that is not paid millions. So they don't carry that sort of swagger, the attitude that some major athletes would carry. They're very approachable, and the kids seem to really gravitate to that. So I think we've been focusing on really dealing with young kids, getting them out, getting them interested, and getting them excited in playing Ultimate.
Awesome. And so I know, Jordan, you've kind of been involved in planning and kind of setting up some of the clinics and camps with these schools. Can you maybe talk about what's kind of gone into that process and what it's been like in terms of the response?
Yeah, for sure. Well, unfortunately, due to COVID, we weren't able to run any this summer, and it is something that we want to do. Just before this call, myself and Jim were talking about a tournament that we plan to put on for some of our fans, just to kind of get them out, and we've all been stuck inside for a very long time. So anything that kind of can create that reach and touch, and create an emotional attachment to our fans, and attach them to the sport, we'd love to do. But definitely with COVID, it has been tough in terms of the reaction that we've been getting from the fans. From day one, the Rush fans have always been, so patient with us. They're so understanding. They understand what's going on. I've had people reach out to me and ask, what's going on with the season, what's going on with my tickets, and I kindly just say, hey, this is what we're going through. We're at this stage of planning and whatnot. And they've just replied back with, this is great. Once you guys get more information, feel free to pass it on. So yeah, the patience has been great. And another thing is, prior to officially canceling our season, I know Jim had some Frisbees laying around there. So we reached out to all the ticket holders, and we kind of said, hey, we have some Frisbees. If you guys are interested, just let us know and we can send them out to you. And the fans love that. I feel because we're a smaller team, it allows us to kind of do things like that and kind of reach out to these fans easier than these top teams in Toronto would. So yeah, the fans have been great. And hopefully the COVID thing kind of calms down so we can kind of get back out there and put on these camps for them.
For sure, it's definitely encouraging to see that you still have that strong support system from the fans during these times. And I myself have had the opportunity to be able to work at the Toronto Rush games, and it's one of the most exciting sports I think I've ever had the opportunity to watch and be a part of. And we need to get more people out to these games and get more people involved, I think, in the sport. And so this kind of leads into my next question here is, have you seen an incline in the interest of Ultimate Frisbee over the course of the pandemic at all? And if so, why do you think that is?
Well, actually, you know what, I guess how you look at whether there's been an increase or a decrease, if you look at the playing community, the people that play Ultimate, I think they've had their bubble burst, and they were very down. They can't play the sport. They can't go out and do anything. They can't socialize with their friends, which is a big part of Ultimate, a big part of lots of sports. That's a group activity. From a fan perspective, I think it's more, I can't say there has been an increase, but what I can say, as Jordan referred to, we have very loyal fans. We have very dedicated fans. So we did not feel any sort of alienation from the fan base to lead us to believe that they were going to move away from us. So we got great support, maintaining the support that we had. And I think we did a good job of communicating with them. I would say that, it's been a bummer for people that play it, and it's been a bummer for everybody. Now, things are changing. Things are getting a little more optimistic now. I think when the weather changes and vaccinations start to pick up, I'm optimistic. I think a lot of people are optimistic. I'm cautious about it, but at the same time, I think what's going to happen is there will be a big, big excitement and a big rush to get, sorry, bad pun, to get back involved and to get back playing and to get back watching and supporting the team. So we think we can come out of this okay. I think the sport's going to come out of it just fine. But like a lot of things, it was a bummer, and you just couldn't do anything, and everything, even outside of professional ultimate, just in club and recreational ultimate, everything got canceled. Everything was just stopped dead in its tracks. So there was that was a real negative. And a lot of the players that we deal with, this is year round for them. If they're not playing, they're training. And if they're not playing outside in the winter, they're playing in domes in the winter, and then outside in the summer. So it's you lose almost a full cycle of being ready to play and losing it and having to get it all back. So there's a lot of excitement about getting back to play.
All right, so my next question was about reaching out to fans, which you both, Jim and Jordan, kind of touched upon that. So what has the response been like towards the sponsorships with the pandemic? Jim, if you'd like to talk about it.
So from a sponsorship perspective, we've never stopped talking to sponsors and brands, even all through the pandemic, all through the very, very tough months of COVID. Obviously, we weren't getting a ton of positive response or a ton of commitments. We continue to try to position where our product fits, what markets it fits well with, and we had a lot of acceptance to continue the conversation, which I think is a good thing, as opposed to just hard nose. But it's just one of these things. It's a process, and you have to stay with it. You've got to keep communicating with your fans, your players, your sponsors, your partners, everybody. And I think we did a decent enough job of that. So now that we have a season, what our sponsors were telling us is we don't really know what we're buying in terms of a sponsorship acquisition. So now that we know what we have to offer, we're in a much better position, and we're having much more conclusive conversations with sponsor brands right now. So it's back on track, I think, is the big message. And we'll just continue to try to expose our brand to companies that have brands that are aligned with us. And we are very, very good with lifestyle brands. We've got a very young, hip audience that is focused on progressive products and progressive services. So those are the brands that really fit well with us. And that's where most of the interest is coming from.
Yeah, I would agree with Jim there. We've definitely been talking to brands since the beginning of COVID, and just like how we were going through, a rough patch, these brands as well we're facing that uncertainty and turmoil. So, I think we're definitely at the point where there's some light at the end of the tunnel. I'm no doctor. I don't want to say anything too quick, but now that we at least have, a schedule, or coming out with a schedule, and we have an idea of what the season's going to be looking like, we definitely have something to sell now. And now brands are going to be, hey, you might want to get on this train before we start moving, because once we start moving, it's going to be too late, right? So brands are definitely now at a point where they're like, okay, we got to get our brand out. We got to see what we are going to do to make sure that fans see our brand and whatnot. So, like Jim said, if we can continue just chugging away at it, we'll definitely see some positivity at the end.
Awesome. And so if there's one thing that you could tell people about Ultimate Frisbee that maybe they don't know, what would it be?
Well, what I would tell them is that it's probably one of the best kept sports secrets out there. And to see it is to like it, that you don't have to play it to like it. And what I always do when I'm having conversations with people that have no idea what I'm talking about, when I talk about professional ultimate Frisbee, is I just share some video clips with them. And then that starts a very, very positive conversation about the sport. So I would just say it is something that you've got to see to appreciate, and something that is underappreciated but has a ton of potential.
Yeah, and I would say something similar to Jim. It's highlight filled. If you turn your head for a second, you might miss, one of the best catches ever. You might miss some of the coolest throws ever. So I think, I don't want to bash anyone else's favorite sport or anything like that, but coming from myself growing up and playing soccer and basketball my entire life, it's a sport that, like I said, if you turn your head, you're missing something good. So yeah, definitely filled with highlights, and hopefully we get some more of that social media content out on our websites.
Awesome. So our last question here for you guys. So what are your plans for the future of the Toronto Rush and Ultimate Frisbee in Canada? Where do you kind of hope to see things post-pandemic?
Well, I would say, first of all, we want to get back to winning an AUDL championship. We won it in our first year. We've been very, very competitive every year since then, but we haven't won it. So, I mean, that's in our short-term goal. We have a ton of talent with local players in Toronto, as well as the imports that we bring in. And, you know, big picture, I think we have, at the league level, we have a vision that by the 2027 season, that our players can actually make a living playing the sport. So we're going to really try to turn this into that quote unquote mainstream sport. And we want people to be able to make a living playing Pro Ultimate and working for Pro Ultimate clubs. So that's really where I'd love to see it go. And we've got 8 years of experience under our belt, and every year we learn a little bit more. You could still consider us a startup business, because we have not experienced any significant setbacks or that big boom in growth. So we just reset every year. We put our head down and go after it again.
Yeah, for me, I would just love to see, us get some fans back in the stadium. Definitely have to wait until we get that okay from the city of Toronto, but getting our fans back to our full potential and filling out Varsity Stadium would be a great sight for me. This was my first season, or supposed to be my first season with the Rush, so I actually haven't seen a full Toronto Rush season in person and with fans. So definitely that's my major goal, is to see us get back to what we were, and then, like Jim said, build on that until 2027.
Awesome. Great. Thank you guys so much for taking some time out of your days to join us and talk about the Toronto Rush and the AUDL, all that good stuff. We've done a few of these now with a couple of different leagues and clients of ours, and it's always interesting to hear the different perspectives and what's going on in each league and each team. So really informative and insightful stuff here that I think we were able to get out of this episode. So thank you for again being here, and it was great having you on. My last thing before we jump off here, where can people kind of reach out to you guys? Where can they follow the Toronto Rush?
Yeah, so if you are interested in tickets or anything like that, especially once we get to that point, you can reach out to me at jordan@torontorush.com. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter. Make sure you guys are also following the AUDL as well, as they're posting all the type of updates with the league. And that way you can keep up to date with what's going on. Like Jim said, we posted last week some information on what the league is going to be looking like for the upcoming year. And with things being so uncertain, we definitely those could change. So keep an eye out on that, and go Rush.
And how about just a website?
TorontoRush.com. Pretty easy.
TorontoRush.com. All right. But awesome. Yeah, no. So thank you guys. It was great getting to chat with you. Good to see you again, Jim. Hopefully I'm able to see you in person.
Yeah,
back in the stadium there, and
no kidding. It would be great. So thanks
working those games.
Thanks for having me today. It was fun chatting with you.